Hello friends, welcome to the ninth part of our architectural visualization course. I am Oğuz. Today we will learn how to create a user interface. With the UI we will create, we will be able to switch between the levels we prepared, change quality settings, and display the information we want to convey on the screen. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started by creating a folder named UI. In this folder, we will host our widgets and a few tools. Then, let's copy our walkthrough level and name it our main menu. This level will contain the first menu that will appear when we run the program. The reason I copied the walkthrough level is that I want to see our scene live in the background while navigating through the menu. We could have done this without copying, but for now, I want to keep our work cleaner. Let's open the UI folder and right-click. Select Widget Blueprint from the User Interface tab at the bottom and name it Main Menu. When we open the blueprint, you will see interface tools on the left side. Instead of discussing all of these tools, we will focus only on the ones that will quickly achieve our goal. First, let's start with the vertical box. Vertical box allows you to arrange the elements you attach to it vertically. Alongside this, the horizontal box tool will arrange the elements you attach horizontally. Let's add vertical box as a child to our canvas. Now, let's talk about anchors a bit. Anchor is the name given to points that allow us to change the boundaries of our boxes. Drag and drop these points to the desired location where you want the boundaries of the box to be. Then, change all offset values to 0 to align the dimensions of our box to these boundaries. We will design our main menu within this box. The remaining area will be the space where our background scene will be. Now, let's add an image again, which will be a parent to the canvas. Let's adjust the anchor dimensions of the image like in our box and set the offset values to 0. Then, let's set the image color to black and decrease the alpha value to 0.6. With this addition, we have added a transparent background color to our menu. This would have been sufficient normally, but I will also include the background blur tool that I always use. Similarly, let's add the tool under the canvas as a child and adjust the anchor and offset values. We will change the background blur with the blur strength value. You can use any value you want. You might wonder why we added those tools separately by repeating the same process. We are forced to do this because the image and blur tools do not accept any child elements underneath them. This is not applicable for vertical box. Therefore, we will add our texts, buttons, and many images as children to the vertical box. Let's drag and drop new vertical box tools into our box or on top of it in hierarchy to create children. For our current purpose, we need a total of 4 child boxes. Let's select all of them and choose Fill from the Details panel. With this setting, our boxes will be divided equally within their parent box. You can adjust the widths of our boxes by changing the value that comes next to Fill setting. A small tip: when adjusting this setting, if you distribute the total value of all boxes to equal 1, it will be easier to maintain the ratio. I set these values to 0.15, 0.2, 0.6, and 0.2. Now, let's drag the image tool where we will place our logo onto the top box. Enabling the fill option and aligning the alignment values to the center, we see that our image box is blurred. The reason for this is the background tone and blur we added earlier are affecting our logo image. Just like in Photoshop layer system, here we also have layers that stay on top or bottom. We control the layer order in UI tools with the Z order value. When we change this value to -1 for background tools, you will see that the menu items become clearer. Let's go back to our logo and update the image size to 100 by 100. We haven't imported our logo to Unreal yet. You can get the logo I used from the course assets file I shared. Of course, you can also place your own or your client's logo here. Let's import the logo and complete our process by selecting it from the Image tab. Now, let's add a text block to the second box. Choose Fill from the Details panel and align the alignment settings to center. I want to use my own font instead of Unreal's font. I will import our font into the UI folder. Then you will be able to easily change the font of our text. You can add our text and adjust their positions. In this section, I will prefer to turn off the fill option and manually adjust the text positions. Additionally, I want to separate the texts by drawing a line. We can use the image tool for this purpose. Let's add the image tool and move it to a higher place by clicking on the arrow on top. Then, let's align the alignment settings to center and change the dimensions of the image to be like a line from the image size. You can balance the positions by changing the padding option at the top of the details panel. Now, time to add our buttons. For this menu, I want to have 4 main buttons. Play to run our walkthrough level, Cinematic to play our cinematic, Quality settings to change our quality settings, and Exit to close the project. Let's start by dragging the button from the left menu onto the third box. Align the button's alignment settings to center and activate the fill option. Then, let's drag the text tool onto our button. Let's change the text to play and return to the button. For the button, we will deal with the normal, hovered, and press sections under the Style tab. The normal setting represents the normal appearance of the button. Let's open the color of the setting and lower the alpha value to 0. With this setting, the background color of the button will be disabled in this normal appearance. The hovered setting represents the appearance of the button when we hover our mouse over it. Here, we can lower the alpha value of the color to 0.2. This way, it will slightly shine when hovered over. The pressed setting represents how the button will look when pressed. For this setting, we can change our color to black and lower the alpha value to 0.4. This way, the background color, which is white when pressed, will turn black. Now that we have made our initial settings, it is time to test. Now let's learn how to activate our UI when we play our scene. Select Open Level Blueprint from the Blueprint option on the left in Viewport. The only node we will need here is Event Begin Play. You can delete the others. Add the Create Widget node and select Main Menu from under the class we are creating. Then right-click and add the Add to Viewport node. With this setting, the interface will open when we press play. However, since we are in game mode, you may not be able to access it. To switch to UI mode, right-click and add the Set Input Mode to UI Only node. Then, add the Get Player Controller node to the Player Controller input. We are in UI mode now, but the mouse isn't visible. To add the mouse, copy the Get Player Controller and connect it to the Set Show Mouse Cursor node. You should activate the checkbox here, or it won't show up again. When we run our level, we will start to see the menu interactively. Now we can return to the interface widget. To avoid repeating the same process for our other buttons, let's copy our play button 3 times in Hierarchy tab. Make sure that the vertical box is selected when performing the copying process. After copying, we can change the text and fonts. You may have noticed that our camera goes to the first-person blueprint in the test screen. To prevent this, let's delete the BP first-person character from our scene. When we play our scene, our camera position will no longer change. Now, let's create a simple camera shot for our background scene. Since we have covered the details of this part enough in the previous section, I won't go deep into it. The only point I want to mention is that we will slightly move the camera. Since it will be in sequence loop, make sure that the starting and ending positions of the camera are the same. Once we complete this process, let's reopen the level blueprint. As the next step, let's add Create Level Sequence Player as a Continue node and select the sequence we created. When we start the scene, our background will play the sequence we created. It's time to add functions to our buttons. While the main menu widget is open, you will see 2 options at top right: Designer, which is the screen we have been using so far, and Graph, which is the classical blueprint interface. Let's switch to graph interface. You can delete all the nodes you see. Let's start by selecting the play button from the variables tab on the left. We will click on the onClicked from the details panel below. This will add a node to the graph that will be triggered when the button is clicked. After this node is triggered, we want our walkthrough level to open. We will use the open level by object reference node. After adding the node and selecting the level, our first function is ready. Let's perform the same application for other buttons. Since we haven't created our cinematic level yet, we will leave the level section blank. We will change it after we prepare the level. When we click the quality button, we want an additional section of the interface to open. Let's leave this part blank for now as well. Finally, let's add the exit button. Here, we will use the quit game node. Now we can continue from the quality settings menu. Let's create a new vertical box for quality settings and drag its anchor points to the areas that will limit our box. Then, let's zero out the offset values to set borders to their normal sizes. Now, just like we did in the left menu, we also need to add blur and image tools to the background. Let's align their boundaries and offset values with the values of the vertical box. Make sure that our box and tools have the same boundaries. We don't want any problems when adding the opening animation. A small note. It is not necessary to adjust the boundaries of the image because blur can accept one child. You can add the image as a child to the blur. Let's change the Z order to -1 for the blur. We will add our buttons in the same way as in the left menu. If you want, you can select and copy one of the buttons on the left, then paste it as a new child when the newly created box is selected. We need a total of 5 buttons in this menu because Unreal has a total of 5 quality settings that we can change. Now, let's open the Animation tab in the bottom left and drag the toolbar to the layout. Click on the plus Animation tab to create a new animation sequence. Then, with Quality box selected, click on the plus track button. Let's do the same for blur as well. These two tools are now ready to prepare animations. You will remember creating keyframes. The small markers next to the values you want to change are there for us to create keyframes. You will find the values you want to use for the animation under the transform option. I think changing only the scale values will be enough. As you know, the values affect based on the pivot point. You can change the pivot values to change the reference point. You can achieve the effect you see by changing the scale X value. Let's shorten the timeline to 1 second and add keyframes to the beginning and end. It's important to change from 0 to 1. If you leave the initial value as 1, the menu will appear open. Let's do the same for the blur and switch to the graph tab. We will use the play animation node to play our animation. Our animation will be hidden under variables animation on the left. We will drag it and connect it to the LN animation input. As in the previous section, like we did with the door, we need a boolean to check if the menu is open or not. Let's create it under variables and name it QualityBoxStatus. We will add getQualityBoxStatus to the graph and separate its status with the branch command. If the status is true, we will play the animation in reverse, and if it's false, we will play it normally. To play it in reverse, we need to copy the play animation node and change the plane mode to reverse. Let's make the necessary connections and link the set quality box status nodes. At the end of the series we play forward, let's change the status values to true, and for the other, let's change it to false. Now we can test. It's working fine. It is time to add functionality to our settings buttons. Let's call the onClicked trigger for all our quality buttons. What we are going to do is very simple. We will solve it with a single console command. Let's add the execute console command node. In the command field, type scalability followed by a space. The value you enter after the space will vary from 1 to 5. 1 represents the lowest settings, while 5 represents cinematic quality settings. You can also access these settings via the viewport. Clicking on the settings in the top right corner will bring up engine scalability settings, where you can adjust the settings. We can lower the quality from here to navigate faster while working. However, I prefer to keep the image quality high because we can see what we will achieve in the final product. Copy this setting for all buttons and adjust the value, and our menu interface will be ready. Now we can turn back to our cinematic button. Let's create a new empty level to start. Let's open our level. Import the cinematic and the music from the class assets folder. The reason we import the music separately is because Unreal separates the image and sound when we're playing them. Now, what we are going to basically do is turn the cinematic into a material and display it through a new widget. To convert the cinematic into a material, right-click, add a media player from the Media tab. Tick the box that appears and click OK. Select the video from the menu below, and when you save it, a new texture will be created in the same directory. Right-click on the texture, select Create Material, and we are done. Now we will create the widget to display it. Similarly, right-click, add Widget Blueprint under User Interface, open Widget. The tools we need are Canvas and Image. After adding the canvas, drag the image onto it and select the option to cover the entire screen from the anchors. Then, we need to set the offset values to 0 to fill the screen. Select the newly created material from the image. You will see a red warning below. Click on Change Material Domain and open the material. Connect the RGB data to the final color. With this, we have opened the video, but not played it yet. To play the video, let's switch to the Graph tab. And we can delete all nodes except Event Construct. We will add a new variable from the Variables tab. This variable should be of type Media Player Object Reference. Let's add our variable to the graph as a get node and connect it to open source node with an extension. Select our cinematic from the media source and connect it to Play Sound 2D. As you might guess, we will use the cinematic music here. If you want to close our cinematic early, we might want to assign a key for it too. But you may remember we restricted the input mode for UI. Let's change this by adding the set input mode to game and UI node next. Let's also connect the get player controller node, and this series is complete. We can prepare our button sequence below. Let's right-click and search for escape and add it. Connect it to the open level by object reference node next. We can select AR main menu for the level. The widget is ready, but it won't appear on the screen when our level starts. We will fix this by editing the level blueprint. Let's connect the Create Widget node to Event Begin Play and select the widget we created. Then connect Add to Viewport node. The video won't play because we missed a tiny thing. Let's select the cinematic media player from the movie variable we created in the widget graph. This time, I promise it will be done. When we play it, our video will be displayed. Now we can go back to our main menu widget and finally complete our empty cinematic button. We can leave it here, but just in case you want to return from the walkthrough level to the main menu, I will add one more escape key binding. First, let's open our walkthrough level, then the level blueprint. Connect a set input game mode node to Event Begin Play. Again, remember to connect the get player controller. Now, let's add the escape key to the graph and connect it to the open level by object reference node again. Choose the main menu level and we are done.